Sea ice levels in Antarctica have just hit a new record low, and considering these records began over 40 years ago, this is a pretty big deal. It's normal for Antarctic sea ice to build up and then melt around February time, but the amount of ice surrounding Antarctica has dropped to just 1.79 million square kilometers for the first time since we began measuring in the late 70s. This is down from the 1.92 million square kilometers recorded last year, which is also a record-breaking figure. And the melt hasn't even finished yet. Scientists believe unusually high air temperatures could be to blame. They have been around 1.5 degrees Celsius above the norm on both sides of the Antarctic Peninsula. So what does it all mean, and will it affect you? Just quickly before we get into that, please do remember to click that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this. Well, when sea ice melts, sea levels can rise. This is because sea ice acts as the world's fridge, keeping temperatures fairly regulated. Sea ice can reflect between 50 to 90% of the sun's radiation, stopping it being absorbed into the ocean. When less ice is around, there's less of it to reflect solar radiation, which can bring forth hotter and more regular heat waves. A rising global temperature means more glaciers and ice caps will melt, which can cause a rise in sea levels. On our current trajectory, it's expected that in the year 2100, around 410 million people could be affected by rising sea levels of up to 60 meters. This would seriously affect coastal communities in countries like China, India, Egypt, Netherlands, the US, and a series of islands. The progression of sea levels rising can also mean a devastating alteration to climate patterns and changes, as well as colder and more extreme winters. It can trigger droughts, wildfire, extreme flooding, and dust storms. Animal lovers, prepare yourselves. As well as affecting us humans is not a great outlook for our four-legged, furry, and fishy friends either. Homes for polar bears, seals, walruses, fish, and Arctic foxes could become few and far between, with global stocks of fish dropping too. Habitats for these animals are at this very moment already under threat due to climate change, and we don't need to make it harder for them. As it stands, we're on track to lose around 30% of our polar bears by 2050, and nobody wants to see that. Maybe one of the scariest prospects of a warmed up world is the melting of permafrost. Permafrost is a permanently frozen layer on or just under the Earth's surface, and it can range between 1 to 1,000 meters in thickness. But the threat lies within it. The frozen layer traps a massive amount of greenhouse gases like methane and carbon dioxide. This gas contributes to global warming, and when the world warms up more, permafrost melts and more methane is released, which is a vicious cycle. But permafrost also has trapped within it a host of historic viruses and bacteria that could trigger chaos if released. Some viruses believed to be trapped are the bubonic plague and smallpox. And upon thawing, the permafrost can also weaken the ground above it, which can have an impact on infrastructure and communities. But these points are just a sliver of a multitude of effects that sea ice melting can have. It can affect all of us in all areas, from what we eat to how we live our lives. So if you didn't know what sea ice could offer us, you do now. How do you think we can halt global warming? And if you're interested in more videos like this, remember to click that like button and subscribe to our channel.